All right.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. Not quite sure. Well, I think at one point the press conference.
Oh, okay.
No, I think it put it at one point. No, new cameras hopefully during the August recess. Got a bid back. Should be kind of just like this one.
This is the bid list.
Yes.
I'm taking over for the bid.
You're mayor now,
For the
Peter.
rest of the night.
Yeah, you're mayor.
So anyway, I just wanted to.
All right, good evening. This is the Rules Committee meeting for Monday, May 6, 2013. We have a quorum present. Do we have any citizen comments sign up?
I don't believe
I
we
don't
do.
think so.
Okay, we'll just double check that. And while Mr. McRae checks that, first item on the agenda, no comment, okay, is approval of minutes of the regular meeting of March 4th, 2013. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
A second? All those in favor of approving the minutes of March 4th, 2013, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. And the next item on the agenda is a presentation by our Public Safety Civil Service Commission. Good evening. How are you all? Please step on up. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. My name is Paul Schmidt. Currently serve as the Civil Service Chairperson for the Evanston Public Safety Civil Service Commission. Our commission was initially set up by the Evanston City Council and by an ordinance in 1979 to oversee the hiring of most of the city employees. However, as most city employees have become unionized, this is now handled by contracts between the city and the unions. The Commission continued hiring the police and fire department by setting standards, reviewing the applicants, and deciding if the applicants should be hired. The 1979 ordinance had never been updated to match the reality of what was going on in the Rules Committee, in our commission. In 2011, the Commission, with the assistance of the Human Resources Department and the Legal Department, decided to update the ordinance to match what we did. However, at the same time, the state legislature began working on legislation that would cover the hiring of legislation for firefighters for the state for cities of less than 1 million. I think we all understand what that meant. Chicago was out of it. The legislation was passed and signed by the governor, which required not only an update but a complete overhaul of the ordinance and the commission rules. This legislation basically removed the home rule authority for the hiring of firemen from most municipalities and set up one way that firemen would be hired in the state, except in the city of Chicago. As the Commission writes its own rules, the Commission also had to rewrite the Commission rules to comply with the new state legislation. The Commission asked the City Legal Department to prepare a new set of Commission rules that would reflect the work of the Commission and also comply with the new state legislation. The Legal Department prepared the new rules, which were then reviewed by the Commission, changes made, and finally approved by the Commission. The updated city ordinance, which authorized the Public Safety Civil Service Commission, and the new Commission rules were presented to the Evanston City Council for approval. As these are new rules for both the current Commission as well as the new Commissioners, it was decided to have all the Commissioners at an orientation to review them. The Commission has been expanded from 3 to 7 members to handle the number of interviews that will be required by the fire department legislation done by the state. There are currently 6 members appointed to the Commission, with 1 yet to be appointed. It is understood that the Commission rules are new, and as we discuss and more fully put them into practice, there will still need to be changes. The new rules allow for the Commission to make these changes via amendments after being posted on the city's website for 30 days prior to adoption and notifying the City Council. I think that you have on your desk our report for our work plan. The only changes we've done to these so far on Goal 1, we've already hired all the commissioners except for the last one. We've had
We're
the
working on
orientation.
it.
Pardon?
We're working on it.
Good. We've had our orientation for the 5 commissioners that were currently appointed. The 6th one we just appointed last week. And we've all gone over them, and we had a business meeting afterwards. And at the business meeting, we looked at the preference points to be given to the firefighters and the police chief. All the outside companies have been bidded out, and the contracts have been signed for the fire department authorization hirings. The police department's authorization hirings were extended for 6 months. The current list is an old list, which we could still extend. The fire departments, however, under the new state legislation, expires October in this year, which means we have to start a whole new list for them. With the orientation being now completed, the amendments, we'll be having another meeting in the morning, and the final amendments will finally be approved and will be posted on the website. All the people will then be given the test by the company that IO, or the company that we use for that process. There was a little discussion over whether or not we had, under the state legislation, we had to interview everybody who passed the test. The city legal department was asked for a response on this, and they agreed that we could only do 20 at a time. This is different from what other cities are doing, but with the legal department's approval, we're going to try and sneak it through this way. Normally, we get between 200 to 300 applications, and if 100 to 150 pass, that's a lot of work. And especially as our original rules have said that the city fire department chief was going to be at all the interviews, which after we looked at it, figured that would be a week of his time, and we didn't think that the city fire chief had the time to spend interviewing people for maybe 2 to 3 positions. The entry, as I said, the police department has been extended to October till November of this year, at which time we will post and make a new posting for the city's hiring for new positions in the fire department. Do you have any questions on our report?
Hello, thank you for coming. Are there qualifications to be on the commission? And if there aren't, what is it that you look to the mayor to bring to you in terms of people with what kind of backgrounds?
Well, for the qualifications, I'd go to the mayor because I'm not sure what the qualifications are.
But you're on the commission, so you know what is needed.
Well, I think what we try to do is have a diversified commission as possible and be able to look at why the person wants to be a firefighter or a policeman in the city of Evanston.
No. The commission members, what qualifications for them?
Well, the commission members, as I said, it's usually just that you're filling out a form and you're getting assigned to a commission, basically. There's no...
There's a problem with that.
Well, there might be a problem, but that's not our commission's problem.
But I think it's your responsibility to communicate to the mayor
Well, I
the
have
kinds
heard,
of needs that
maybe
you
it'll
have.
help if I answer. The reason there's one position that's vacant is, I believe, that it is important to have a civil service commission that reflects the diversity in this community, and we don't have a Latino on it, and I'm very much hoping, I've asked Father Aldershaw, and I'm asking in public if the Latino community has someone who is interested and obviously responsible, etc. But we have pretty good people applying.
Well, I just think it's really important, having watched numerous committees lately. I'm very concerned that people that are appointed do more than fill out a form and say they want to be on such and such a commission. I think we ought to. We have lots of smart people in our town, and lots of smart people are on these committees. They just don't always seem to fit, and that's my concern, that we focus more lately on who's applying for what commission.
Well, I do ask staff what they feel is needed given the mix of the group. And I heard from staff that a Latino was needed. But
Well,
I heard that a
you know-
young Latino, I think that's a little pushy.
Yeah, but, a Latino or African-American woman, et cetera, whatever is needed for diversity, there also needs to be qualifications to go along with it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't want to
No, I
belabor
think
the point.
I think the people on the Civil Service Commission are well qualified.
I do too. I'm just talking about new appointees.
One of the things that we tried to do when I was on the commission, I was the oldest member of the commission at that point, was the rules had never been changed since 1979. And if you read the rules, it didn't say a thing about what we did. And that's one of the things that we sat down with Human Resources and the legal department to say, we have to have something that's says what we're supposed to do and do it correctly. I mean, we were doing things actually illegally, but basically, if you looked at it, Human Resources wasn't even in there. It was personnel. At that point, it was the personnel department was doing everything, which we had gotten rid of. And one of the things and we sat down with the legal department, and they agreed also that it was time to update what we did here. And as I said, we spent about a year about doing that until the state decided to step in and change it all to begin with. So we had to start all over again after we did that. And I do appreciate what the legal department did in updating those rules to make sure that we were in compliance with the state legislation. I think we're one of the only cities probably in compliance right now.
All right, Alderman Holmes?
Just review for me again in terms of interviewing all the candidates who pass, and now you're going to take a shortcut and just only do 20 at a time. What does that do to the pool in terms of...
The pool actually ends, the lists are only valid for 2 years. And under the fire department's area, state legislation only allows you for the 2 years. In the police department, we make the list valid for 2 years, but it may be given an extension of up to 6 months to a year by the Human Resources Department with the approval of the Commission. That we did have the power to extend the list if we had enough people on the list with the fire department also, but that was taken away on the state legislation. So we can only go for 2 years, and who's ever on the list for that list for the 2 years is eligible. But at the end of that 2 year period, you've got to have a new list. That's why we're in the process of making sure we have a new list available for August of this year, because that's when the state legislation states that no longer are the list available or can be used, the old list.
Can I just add a little bit to that?
Yes.
With the new fire legislation, there's all of these points that you have to add into the process. So they define different types of lists. And one of the challenges that we're having is when we do a test, we have about 400 people. We have about 400 people who test, and we've had about 200 who pass. And so we've been kind of like, how are we going to interview 200 people and then assign the points, which is how the legislation reads. So we've done some research with other communities. We've talked to some of the people who helped write the legislation to see if there's a way to subgroup our list. So when people actually pass, can we group it? And that's what Paul was saying, is we need to break it into more bite-sized pieces, because we have so many people who pass our tests. To have 200 people interviewed and then assign points to create our final list was going to be almost unmanageable. That's one of the reasons why we asked to increase the size of the commission, because we knew that that was going to be a lot more work with this now requirement to interview everybody who passes.
Okay, but so at the end of the 2 years, if I'm understanding, and those people have to come off, have we just not sort of eliminated their chances of being hired? I mean, it's not their fault.
They can retake the new test. And if they pass the new test, they will be.
Hardly seems fair.
If we have 200 people, say we have 200 people who pass the test like we did last time, we may hire 6, 7, 8 a year. So in a 2-year period of time, we'll hire maybe 20 in a 2-year firefighters in a 2-year period of time. We never get through a whole list. We never have. The thing that's really different is the assignment of the points. Again, we added residency points last time we did a fire process. The legislation now requires you to give points for veteran status. And it tells you how and where you add those points. The commission has also assigned points for residency, for passing the academy, so that there's some additional points that they've assigned. Those don't get assigned according to the legislation until the subjective component or the commission interview takes place, which is the second thing in the process. It's the test, and then it's the commissioners doing their interview, and then the points. So part of the challenge was, how do we get through 200 interviews before we can assign points? Somewhere, they met with people who helped write the legislation and some attorneys, and they figured out how to segment the list without violating the legislation, because the points are added after the process. It is challenging.
Yeah. Sounds like it is.
Yeah.
That's why I said we've had some amendments to our rules already because of the different things that we've come across. I think we stuck in there once that it had to be the police chief and the fire chief had to be at the interviews. And as we started looking at the amount of interviews, we added in his or her designee. It was a 3-word thing, but it saved both the police chief and the fire chief about 4 or 5 days of time. Otherwise, they would have had to been at each of the interviews for the interview to be considered valid. So we changed that already. There are small things that were coming up as we do things. We're finding out we have to check it and make, with it now being under state legislation, the fire department one, it becomes a little more daunting than it did before. I mean, we used to be under the city council's authority via the commission rules. Now it's with the fire department one, it goes from state legislation to city council to fire commission rules and then the personnel rules.
And I guess partly to your point, partly to Alderman Rainey's point, but I think it would be helpful to the mayor to try to communicate some of the skill sets and life experience, whatever it is, that's going to be helpful for people serving on that committee, so the mayor can focus on people who have those skills, so there's less, I guess, training lead time in getting your committee up to speed and ready to help out. So
this time I think we'd have had to do the orientation and training anyways, because of the complete change in the state legislation. It's really changed what we normally had done prior. It doesn't change the police, but it does change the fire, and then trying to keep people separate from, you're having a fire department personnel, not police department personnel. As Chief Eddington said to me, the fire people had better people who could push against it no one wanted this legislation except for some of the downstate people, but they got stuck with it. The fire department didn't have the people to fight against it, but the police department did.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here, and thank you for your hard work. Thank you. All right, next we have on the agenda a review of our seniority list and mayor pro tem list. Has everyone had an opportunity to review that? Alderman Rainley, congratulations and thank you for your extensive service. I'm reminded of the hard work you've put in. Alderman Grover?
I'm just thinking, Alderman Wilson, I'm sorry about the whole alphabetical order thing. I'm sure that's kind of affected you at multiple junctures in your life.
You know what? It doesn't even get noticed anymore. So
No? All right.
I take no offense.
Those of us at the end of the alphabet, we've just learned to adjust.
Any comments, questions, thoughts, or concerns about the list? City Manager?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I guess there's multiple issues before you this evening. I think the first really, unless there's any questions about the seniority list, and so for those that were elected in 2009, leaving alphabetical as it is, really then takes us to the mayor pro tem list. Our recommendation would be to continue for the 79th City Council, the practice that was created during the 78th, and basically divide the 4 years up 9 ways and have a designated list of mayor pro tem designees, and we would go with the seniority list. So we would start with Alderman Rainey from this point, from next week on, and then 9 divisions through the 4 years. So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, if that is agreeable to you,
Wait.
we would ask the committee to consider that and then perhaps have a motion coming out.
Alderman Rainey?
It would start after our inauguration, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So from May 13th, we would again divide the 4 years up into 9 pieces. As you'll notice, it was not until the spring of 2011 that the council adopted this mayor pro tem policy. So the length of time would be a little bit longer for each time. This was about 2 months, 2.5 months. It would probably go to about 6 months of time.
Is somebody going to explain this standing? I'm having a hard time understanding the standing committee thing with the lines drawn through it. I don't understand.
And
I know that
yeah,
was from
let's-
last year. What is
we'll
that?
get to that in a moment.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, let's just, I guess, are we in agreement on the pro tem rotation?
Yes.
Any concerns? I'm moving approval. I did note, I assume this is a typo. Alderman Burris should run through 5/13/2013, correct? It says 5/1 on the sheet, but that's...
Yeah, and the reality is that it's when the election is certified. So, strictly speaking, the election has already been certified. But we would go with the formal swearing in. So yes, so it would be Alderman Burris. If there's a need for a pro tem the next week, you're at.
So much power in the next week.
You did a fine job. You were pro tem last week, 2 weeks ago with the stand against violence and.
It's impressive.
So, but yes, so we would extend that. So it would start on the 14th of May.
Okay, so there was a motion, there was a second, okay, second. All in favor of the pro tem rotation, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is approved. And City Manager, do we have a report on the Standing Committee
Yes.
memorandum?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, in your packet is the last document that memorializes the current chairmanship schedule for the current City Council. This was revised in 2011 with the departure of Alderman John Baptiste and the arrival of Alderman Braithwaite. So the pages are not numbered in the electronic packet, but on the page that Alderman Rainey just referred to, entitled Aldermanic Rotation Schedule of Chairmanships, Standing Committees, revised April 2011, those that were crossed out were those that had already passed at that time. So when this was revised in 2011, those first 2 or 3, 4 in each of the committees had already occurred. So it was just crossed out for for clarity's sake, back in the beginning of 2011 when it was discussed. So this is meant to show the current breakdown of your standing committees. There's been, again, the rotation of the chairmanship. I understand that this is something that the City Council revisits every 4 years. So there are policies in place, procedures firmly in place for this. So we'd ask the Council this evening as the Rules Committee to discuss your pleasure for the 79th City Council. We would come back. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if this is something that's a one-meeting discussion or not. I think it would be helpful to us to get some direction as to where you're headed, and if we needed to come back with some draft schedules in order to accommodate this at your next meeting, we'd be happy to do that.
Alderman Nguyen?
Wally, Mr. City Manager, is the issue how to arrange this in terms of rotating chairs?
Well, I think there are a number of issues, Alderman Nguyen. I think that the council needs to first confirm that you wish to continue the format with the standing committees that you adopted for the 78th City Council. My understanding, and I was not a part of the team back when this was organized, that there were some changes made for the 78th City Council. So I think the council needs to either confirm those changes for the 79th City Council, and if that's the case, then it's just a matter of members selecting membership on each of the committees, and then we go to the chairs. If there's a wish to return to the 77th City Council format or another format, tonight would be the evening to begin those discussions.
Okay. Alderman Rainey?
Well, this setup here on the dais makes it very difficult, in my opinion, for the Rules Committee to function. First of all, no disrespect, City Manager, but in the past, the City Manager has really not participated very much in the standing committee selection and all of the, the nuances that go to appointing committees, et cetera. So I just find it's very difficult to have the conversation about who wants to be on, what this meeting should be about, and I don't even recall if this meeting is even held before the inauguration, because if we had new members of the council, how could they participate in this if we were meeting today? It is convenient for us to do it today because we don't have new members. But the fact of the matter is, I believe this meeting has always been held after the inauguration so that the new members of the council could participate in how they weren't going to get appointed to the committee they wanted. However, I think the very first thing we should do here, and Mr. Chairman, I'm sort of speaking to you, is we should find out, does anybody want to switch committees? And then the way the committee chairmanship goes is it's according to seniority, and if those who are having multiple chairmanships want to switch with the next person, they're able to do that. So I don't even think that's an issue. But who wants to be on what committee is what we should be doing here.
Alderman, and I don't disagree with that at all. Alderman Burris and I think Alderman Holmes had an idea to discuss.
Sure. And yeah, I was going to say, we should talk about this because I do want to change committees and make a plea that we maybe need to change, not keep it the exact same as the last go around, to get a lot of different experience and bring different expertise to the various committees. It seems like it would be a great idea, particularly since we're all the same from the last go around, except for Peter's halfway new, low man on the totem pole. But I think it would be good to change those up. Thanks.
Okay. Alderman Holmes.
Well, once again, I would like to bring to the floor the idea of the discussion of the standing committees, Human Services, APNW, and the Planning and Development as being a committee of all of the aldermen. I just think that it's. I know you don't agree, Alderman Rainey, but I really feel very strongly about it, and I think it would be my third time presenting it because I do feel it is a good idea, and I think that we should discuss it. I'd like to discuss it again to see if there are other people who may have thought about it during this last period, and I think that it would be beneficial to our residents. I've seen some things that happen in committees that then come to the floor where we're not as updated as we would be had we served on the committee. So those are the three committees that I feel that we are, including rules, of course, that we should all serve on.
Thank you, Alderman Holmes. I think I agree with you. The one standing committee I'm not on is planning development, which I would like to add. I'm here that evening anyway. And for our standing committees, those are, it amounts to really 3 evenings, 3 Mondays a month, where most of us are really here anyway. There have been many instances in which I didn't feel we were on the same page on issues that came out of committee, then jumps to council, and it feels as if sometimes we're starting from scratch in our discussions at the council level when the committee has hashed it out and had the public testimony and had the input from citizens, and we don't necessarily have the benefit of that at the council stage. So I like your proposal, Alderman Holmes, and but would like some discussion as well, if that helps.
Alderman Fisk.
Thank you. The problem with having committees of the whole is that I think from the public's point of view, it seems like then the issue is decided at committee and it comes to council for a rubber stamp. And whether that's true or not, the fact is that that's the way it's perceived by the public. And we've always had our committee meetings with a lot of interaction from the public, a little bit less formal, of course, than council meetings. But any council member is welcome to come to committee meetings. I know when there are issues that I'm particularly interested in, I do. I always watch the other committees on TV. But I do think that our primary focus should be on public perception in terms of coming to council without a preconceived or a predetermined outcome.
Alderman Grover.
Yeah, I'm thinking along those lines. I think that it might even be more helpful to get a good sense of where the body is on an issue at the committee level. And I don't write off the ability of a committee of 9 to actually conduct itself less formally and be able to have the kind of discussions that characterize, or that we hope would characterize, our committee discussions different from the formality of a city council meeting. And it might actually help the discussion and streamline the actual council meeting if the nuts and bolts of those conversations, the meat of it, has happened at the committee level rather than later at night at the council level. And I'm not suggesting that it would be a rubber stamp. I just think that that the committee is where a lot of the good discussion and where a lot of the great input happens. And for some of our speakers to have a good sense of where the committee is, that is equating to the council, would shorten evenings for at least the people who are coming to those committees and have issues that they want to be heard on.
Alderman Rainey.
Let's be honest, 99% of all of our issues are absolutely not debated or discussed in any way, shape, or form. Most of the time that delays a meeting, and the public's body's work should not be that easy, is citizen comment and awards and presentations. Our meetings, in my estimation, in my 25 or 6 years, this council, while it's very collegial, our meetings are very boring. There's very little debate, very little discussion. Every now and then we get a vacation rental. We're about to get a couple of really good topics coming up. But for the most part, these meetings are the tamest, least verbal meetings that I can remember in years. On the one hand, that's very good. On the other hand, it creates very little excitement in the community. And I think by having all 9 members on, I mean, what is the point of the legislative body if everybody's going to be on the committee? it doesn't make any sense to me. I refuse to serve on Human Services. So you can have, if you want to say that all 9 members must serve on, or I don't think you can say all 9 members have to serve. I think you can say up to 9 members shall serve or may serve on a committee. But that's the way it is anyway. I mean, I don't see the point of forcing members of the council to be on a committee. I will not serve on Human Services. I've already done that, been there, done that. Don't want to do it anymore. I appreciate the expertise of the people on the committee. That's the way we ought to look at these committees. Some of us know more about garbage than others. Some of us know more about sewers. Some of us know more about zoning than others. Some of us know more about not-for-profits and ombudsman and recreation, and we ought to look to each other for their expertise. And that's what I do. I look to the Human Services Committee to tell me exactly how they're thinking, and that forms my opinion.
Alderman Nguyen?
Well, I do like the way the committees function, and I still hearken back to the days when we were in real committee rooms and sat around a table and were able to make eye contact without having to turn on a light and talk into a microphone, because that is when we really did have collegial meetings, if you remember, Alderman Rainey, and there was a very easy give and take with the folks who came. And that's where we really did hammer out an awful lot of the kinks or problems that were coming up on issues. And they weren't rubber stamped when they got to the council, but we did rely on each other for expertise in land use, if you were on P&D, or the other things. I realize that now that we have the benefit of being televised, but there is something lost in not having a real committee room where everyone doesn't sit up on a dais and you aren't down below talking into a microphone. And absent being able to do that, I still value the smaller discussion that we get. I'm not objecting to anyone serving on the committee, but I do think when it's a smaller group, we tend to have we tend to have a more deliberative discussion when it's a smaller group than we do when it's 9 of us. And I agree with the sense that there is a perception of a rubber stamp that happened during the prior city council when we were a committee of 9 for P&D, and there was a sense that it was done in committee, because all 9 of us were on there. But I'm listening to everyone. I still prefer the committees not to be made up of all of us. I mean, if someone wants to serve, I think that's great. But I share Alderman Rainey's view. It's up to 9.
Alderman Holmes?
Well, I still value the opinion, and I think Alderman Rainey made the point of some of us having expertise in some areas and others having expertise in other areas. And to me, that is one of the values of being able to meet as a committee of the whole, is because when we're discussing, and we really don't discuss at the council, we maybe should more, but in the committees, we do have that discussion, and residents are here to give their input. And I think, to me, that is where we can really benefit from each other's expertise and a longer discussion without having to, worry, and from the residents having not to worry about a 2-minute or a 3-minute presentation, but being able to have some dialogue and be able to answer questions or ask questions back of the residents. So that's why I see the committees as being much more beneficial, for me anyway, to have then the input of other council members there as well. I will use the example of the Human Services Committee, since Alderman Rainey doesn't want to serve on that, but the discussion that we had in terms of the lake, the events, would have been really nice to have your input, Alderman Nguyen, in that committee meeting when we had a real long discussion about it. And that was an important piece in terms of you bringing up what you had done 10 years ago, blah, blah, blah. Of course, we know we need to revise that. But sometimes you don't have that piece of information. That would have been helpful. You would have known where the committee was coming from in terms of trying to extend it for one more event that could be beneficial to the community. So that's just recent. And made me think again that, well, let's give it one more try. And I understand that people have the perception. I think that it's up to us to educate our residents about what we're doing, and that it is not a rubber stamp. I think we can come out of a committee of 5 with a 5-0 vote. It doesn't mean that it's going to make me not change my vote on the council floor, because maybe something else will come from another council member that will change my vote. So there's all kinds of ways that it could be looked at. I just think that maybe we sometimes fall into the, I want to say that we think that maybe people are still on a track of thinking that they've moved past as well. So,
Alderman Grover.
Seems we're struggling to find the balance between giving greater access and outreach to as many more residents as possible through televising as many meetings as possible, but still feeling as if we've lost that connection through a smaller committee, informal committee meeting. And maybe there's a way to do it by wiring a committee room for video so that we can sit closer, not at this enormous podium, at a distance, and have those committee discussions, but yet have the outreach and accessibility that we desire to more residents. Just a thought.
I'm going to add my 2 cents real quick. I agree with Alderman Rainey and Alderman Fisk, and I think that no matter what we do, if we have a committee meeting and have a vote to put something out of committee, people are going to believe that that's the result. And I just think it's too difficult to get past that. It's reflected in the fact that even if we have a committee meeting and introduce something, the local press will often cover something and strongly infer that it's already passed, even though we've only introduced it. And it's hard enough to struggle against that information. But I think if we are actually having a vote with 9 people and making a decision to send something on, it's going to cause people to check out, and I think it's going to cause people to be frustrated. Many, many times, if you don't have a specific vested interest in something, if it's not directly applying to you, you're not going to find out about the thing until it's covered in the local press. Whether it's whatever it is, any given thing. If it doesn't directly relate to you, you're not going to be at that committee meeting. You're going to find out about it, and you're going to see a vote, and you're going to be frustrated if it didn't go your way, because you're going to feel like you've been excluded from the process. I guess a logistics point would be, time-wise, it's a little bit challenging to get to the council meetings. And I fully recognize that this would probably streamline the council meetings, but people like to and want to come to the council meetings and want to speak to us as a group. So number one, if they come to the council meeting and feel like we've already made up our minds, that's frustrating. Number two, I think if all 9 of us were at these committee meetings, the committee meetings just are going to have to be longer. And if we don't start the council meetings till 9:30, 10 o'clock, that's going to be really challenging for people to feel like they can participate in them. So I feel pretty strongly about it. I understand the efficiencies, and I understand what Alderman Grover and Alderman Holmes are suggesting. But I think as far as implementation goes and how people perceive what we're doing, it's going to be really difficult to be as effective as we are with this format. So, Alderman Rainey.
This could never apply now unless we limited committees to 3 people. But way back when there were 18 members of the council, all 3 major standing committee meetings met before the council meeting. So in 3 rooms down the hall here, we had Human Services meeting, P&D meeting, and Administration and Public Works meeting. And there were different people on each committee, of course. Those rooms would be packed with people. I mean, you've got to remember, Melissa and Dolores.
Sure.
I mean, you'd go into Human Services, standing room only in P&D. It really it could be a nothing meeting. I mean, nothing interesting on the agenda, and the rooms would be packed. There would even be police and fire representatives just to make sure we didn't do anything to them that night. There would just be all sorts of people. It wasn't all staff, believe me. And then after those meetings, they would report out to the floor of the council. And so that made for a very energetic and dynamic council meeting because nobody knew what went on in anybody else's committee. So there were big reports every night. And so that, I don't think any member of the community felt shortchanged because, it wasn't in the big room or it wasn't on TV. People came and, they stayed late because then they came to the council. So it's just that there are a variety of ways we can configure this. But I agree with Alderman Nguyen, not being able to talk to one another. I like the Rules Committee in the council chambers. I mean, we could fit everybody in there tonight. And I don't know what to do about that. I don't know what the technology is. I've heard from people that it's very difficult to do it in the committee rooms.
I'm not sure. Alderman Fisk, I think you might have been next.
Yeah, and Alderman Rainey, I just want to add to that from a citizen's point of view, when the committees were meeting in the different rooms, there was always an opportunity after the committee meeting to come and lobby other members of the council as a resident. And having worked on many of those, I found it very helpful to do that. You could either make corrections if someone had a misperception about an issue, or you could work on other council members, but there was always a lot of activity in the hallway talking about issues. And I think we did have a citizen base that was much more engaged, and I think we need to take some responsibility for them not being as engaged. And I see with moving toward again, committees of the whole, is that we're taking another step backwards. And I know it's not anyone's intention to do that, but I think we're taking a step backwards and actually creating more of a distance between ourselves and our residents. So I absolutely agree. It seemed a little unwieldy when you had people in various rooms and rushing through the hallways, but there was an energy there that I think made for a very positive public discussion.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes, I do remember those days, Ann. And I was also a citizen in front of one of them for a long period of time. And it is a more collegial environment. So what I'm going to ask the city manager is, how difficult would it be to televise from one of the committee rooms or both of them? Because I do think there is such a big difference between sitting around those tables and being able to interact with people not on this dais, and also actually being able to interact with each other. I mean, being able to see each other's faces without my glasses on. I'd like to know that, because I do think that we function better, in my mind, as a deliberative committee body, different deliberative committee bodies, when we were not 40 feet away from each other.
Alderman Nguyen, members of the committee, it's all about technology. We have one point that we connect in this building out to the cable system, and that's the room down the hall. So any additional wiring that we would need to connect back. So certainly nothing's impossible. We're looking at a redo of the cameras in this council chambers right now, and I believe that cost with some additional backroom equipment is in the $35,000 range, and that's really replacing everything. So we would not have to replace everything or replicate everything to go to an additional room. So we're probably talking an order of magnitude, off the top of my head, probably between $10,000 and $20,000, I think, probably to get another room wired with microphones and then connections back to that control room, and we would have the ability to do one meeting at a time. So I think if it was just the relocation of the meetings with the current schedule, I think we certainly can pursue that and look into that. Again, we are getting ready to come to the council with a package for this room. So if we need to go back to that vendor and get quotes for, and I guess we would look to have the closest room possible, simply just for technological convenience. If we've redone the one committee room at the far end of the building, but I guess if you'd like, we could look at redoing the room that's closest here, 24. Is it 2402. We'd be happy to do that.
Well, and also, could we just check to see if it's just a matter of adding 50 feet of cable or whatever it is? Maybe that's not the most expensive part of it, because we might be able to use the Economic Development Committee room.
I mean, I think that wherever you put it, it's just a matter of connecting back to this room.
Okay,
So
right. I'd like to see.
I'm
I'd like
happy
to
to
see-
look for whatever room the council's
well,
most interested in. We've
I
spent
don't
the
want-
most.
I don't want to make it too complicated, but I would like to see the costs of doing that, because I think there are a number of people on this council who haven't had that experience of, other than what we used to have at Rules in the Aldermanic Library. And I understand the value of being here in this council and making everything televised as possible, because people do watch us, and it really does make a difference. I just think that we could get a better product for everybody if we all were really around a table, not up on a dais.
Alderman Tennant.
Thank you. I think that would be money well spent if it is reasonable, like you said, in that range or something like that. I was often at those meetings as well. They were really lively, tense at some times, really invigorating. So I think that's something we have lost and should try to recapture. As far as the standing committees, I would go with a maximum of 9, as Alderman Rainey had suggested, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Fisk, because there are several that I'd like to be on in addition to the ones I am, and I think that should be the option that we pursue.
Alderman Rainey. You got your light on.
Mr. Chairman, I think room 2200 should be discounted, because that's the same as this. I don't, it's the closer the better, the more.
I agree.
I think it needs to be a more intimate kind of setting.
And a question for the council. At that point, though, the committees were a maximum of 5?
Yeah. Well, no, the economic development was always larger than that.
No,
and
but I
we
think
never-
that's 7 now.
ANPW and P&D were a maximum of 5?
P&D was 5 and ANPW was 4.
Because one of the challenges we have with 2200 is just the committee's bigger, and so consequently you need more space to get everyone around a table. If you're only dealing with 5 council members, that's is easy. I mean, that obviously gives you that kind of
But-
intimacy.
But, excuse me, Marlon, but my point is that the economic development always used to meet in the ANPW room,
Right.
and it had the same number of people on it as it does now with citizens. So it was like 7 or 8 people.
And certainly another time we can talk about reconfiguring the rooms to get whatever. And if you want to be squished, we're happy to squish you. But we can certainly, Mr. Chair, look at what the technology options are for at least one committee room to be with cameras and microphones, and come back to you as soon as possible.
Okay, yeah, if you could get us a list of options. And I think just to kind of keep us on task for Alderman Holmes' question, let's see if we can resolve the committee size question initially. So, Alderman Rainey?
Yeah. Why don't we find, before we go to saying 9 can be on a committee, which I think is a mistake, there's that. Let's find out who wants to be on what committee and see how many. I don't see forcing people to serve on committees makes any sense. If they don't want to be on the committee, they shouldn't have to be on the committee. And I don't want to be marked absent from Human Services.
From every meeting. Alderman Grover?
Already crossed you out here.
I'm thinking I'm liking Alderman Tendon's proposal that we expand the size of the committees to accommodate who wants to be on them without a requirement.
That's what we did.
Yeah, that's what we do with economic
Yeah.
development.
I mean, that,
So for all the standing committees.
Okay.
Okay.
I like Alderman Rainey's idea the best. I think perhaps what we can do is we can submit to the city manager the list of desired committees and see what those look like, and regroup with that. To Alderman Rainey's point, I think it is most appropriate to make the committee assignments and changes after the inauguration date, when we are actually all members of that 79th council.
So could we get a form that we could submit our?
We were official.
Right. So, Mr. City Manager, if you could give us a a la carte menu of committees to choose from to each council member, would that work for most of, or for all of our purposes? And then we can do our suggestions. Then we'll see what those numbers look like.
We have this. Can we choose this?
What is that?
Something that we can return back. Yeah, like an email,
Something
I think.
electronic, maybe, just-
Certainly, we'll give you check boxes and.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Oh, here it is.
All right. Okay, thank you. That was a very good discussion, I think.
Our standing committee.
And let's see. Okay, May 13th, 2013 City Council agenda. Alderman Fisk had a suggestion, which I think was an interesting suggestion. Would you like to explain your?
Yes, thank you. My suggestion was, it seemed odd, or at least cumbersome to me, to have a celebration and a swearing-in ceremony, and then send everyone home that was there to celebrate, and go directly into a council meeting. So I was wondering if we can do an abbreviated council meeting that night, do what we must do, approval of bills and other things in very short order, so that we can join the people who came to celebrate with us and spend the evening with them rather than in a council meeting.
Basically just consent agenda and move along. Is that Alderman Burris? I don't know. Well,
we've
I
already,
was.
I mean, we're a week out, and people are expecting to have items attended to. So I think we attend to the items we've said we will attend to at the meeting.
Well,
on
I
Monday.
think, yeah. I was going to ask the city manager if he could kind of give us a run through of what's on there. I think what was primarily being suggested is no presentations, no things of that nature, or awards that aren't already, people aren't already invited to.
Are you trying to say no proclamations?
Mr. City Manager?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we have a pretty full agenda, most of which could be moved to the 20th. There are a couple of items of concern. One is the bed and breakfast ordinance amendments. We had sent notes to residents who are concerned, indicating the 13th would be the date for that discussion. I'm unclear as to how long that discussion might take. We certainly could send notes out again saying it was delayed. There's an issue regarding parking requirements for the property at 1890 Maple, which is still unresolved, but Alderman Braithwaite has indicated that the property owner is anxious to have them resolved. So that remains up in the air. We also have issues regarding the Howard Hartree TIF surplus distribution, and then a debt issuance policy issue Mr. Lyons brought to my attention this afternoon. I think all of them could be moved if that was the council's desire. If not, we can make the meeting with just those 4 items that we've identified. Our current schedule has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 29, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38 items potentially for the 13th otherwise. So if that was not the case, we would move it to the 20th, and currently we're planning on 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 items. The 20th is your third Monday, so we would normally not be projecting to have a longer agenda there. That's for larger items to be discussed, and then the 28th goes on. So we're happy to accommodate the will of the council.
All right, I lost track of the order. Let's start with Alderman Rainey. I think you're... Oh, Colleen, okay. Alderman Burris.
I think this is really unfair. I mean, extremely unfair to change up at the last minute, a week out. I deliberately changed my honeymoon to make sure that I was here on the 13th, and I'm leaving the next day for a week. And so because one alderman wants to change up because they want to party, I'm sorry, but I've had made plans well before this, so we're going to change things that we were supposed to talk about on the 13th to accommodate one alderman's request. That seems unfair, and you have people planning to come on the 13th that knew that things were going to be on the agenda. Just seems really unfair.
Alderman Rainey.
Well, I would think, and Alderman Fisk, I'm not sure what you're thinking about this, but I think that the families that are coming would rather come, get it over with, than go home. I mean, that's what I'm thinking, you know, especially if there are children. We have had inaugural parties at 1 o'clock in the morning.
That is right.
In the Parasol Room, which is, I'll never do that again. It was sort of like a party, but some of us were half asleep. And so I think if we have to delay the council meeting, I would rather delay the council meeting than, you know, I would rather start the council meeting at 9:30. We do that anyway when we have a lot of input. So I think we should just leave it.
Okay, Alderman Nguyen.
I think it's an excellent suggestion, but unfortunately, I think Alderman Fisk, it's a little bit too late. I was the only person celebrating with myself at one of those 1 a.m. parties because
Very
virtually
lonely.
everyone else in my family had gone home. So I agree with you, Alderman Rainey. I think it's a very big agenda considering that we already have the inauguration going on. So I think for anyone who's taking notes, that I think that the next time around it would be good to be aware of the inauguration date and make sure that we don't and keep the public informed. But I think otherwise there are too many things that a lot of people are expecting to do it at this point. And I think we're just going to have to keep the party short because it's a long agenda.
Alderman, yeah, my comment is there's nothing wrong with bringing up an idea, and I think it's generally a nice idea. So, but it just might not be doable based on the agenda. Alderman Fisk, you had a comment or question?
Yeah, thanks for that comment. It really was an idea that I raised in an email with the city manager, and of course was shared with the council as is entirely appropriate. Again, it just came from folks saying, "Oh gosh, well, we're going to go out and we're going to go to dinner together, and you're not going to be able to come." And that would be true for any of you. Not just this is not about me, Alderman Burris. This is about if everyone is in the same situation, then let's talk about it. So that's fine, and happy I raised it, and hopefully we can talk about this in advance of next time.
Okay, so I'm getting the sense that it was a lovely idea, but perhaps we don't need to discuss it further. Yeah.
And Mr. Chair, just so I'm clear then, with the council's direction, the meeting has been noticed and we provided invitations for you for 6 p.m. The intention would be to have then an invocation, administration of the Athenian oath, oath of office to the mayor, city clerk, and the township supervisor by Judge Don Baptiste, the administration of the Athenian oath and the oath of office to the alderman by Mayor Tisdall, a roll call of the new council, and then a recess. We have made arrangements for food and drink in the anteroom, and then we would have. I think it'd be good to notice a time to begin AMPW. What is 6:30? Too early? 6:45? 7 o'clock?
All those oaths take a little while.
Yeah.
So 7 o'clock for.
That's better.
So we'll notice 7 o'clock for AMPW, and then P&D would be following, 10 minutes following. And then I'll do my best to limit the number that I read off to you so that it is just the most crucial things that need to be considered. So hopefully you would still get out of here at a reasonable hour.
And
Sound all right?
Yeah, and anything that, if it involves a business being able to open, start, things like that, we don't want to hold somebody up for something along those lines.
Time is of the essence.
Right.
Very good. So we'll pare it back a little bit and then plan on having the 20th be more of the regular third Monday, so there will not be committee meetings on the 20th. We'll just leave it as the special orders as it normally is. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is a request by Alderman Braithwaite to amend the membership for the Minority Women in Evanston Business Enterprise Development Committee to allow for the appointment of an additional resident or local business community member. Alderman Rainey?
I would just like to know why nobody from Economic Development has been appointed to go to that committee. I mean, there are six non-officials on the committee, 4 business people, local business people, and 2 citizens, otherwise citizens. I just think it's very important that somebody from Economic Development be on that committee.
Who's the
Were
chair
we
of the
ever
economic?
asked? Were we
Who's the
ever
current chair?
asked?
Okay. You want to round up somebody and make sure we get somebody on that spot? Okay. All right. They should get the person appointed.
Can we put a time period on that?
Alderman Braithwaite?
No, that's a fine recommendation. I mean, I've
You
made
just want the person there,
I just
right?
want someone there
Yeah.
so we can conduct our meetings.
City manager, well, we can't refer without a vote. I'd like to move that we refer to the Economic Development Committee, the selection of a member to the WEVE committee.
And Alderman Braithwaite, that suits your purposes?
If we can get it done in 30 days, that'll be fine.
Okay.
By the next meeting.
By the next meeting.
And
Or
there's,
else I'll bring it back to rules. How does that sound?
We'll have, but we have to approve the appointment?
I'll need to check the rules, but if we don't need to bring it back, we will.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we vote on it? We have to vote on non-standing committee referrals? That's
Well,
what the
it's already an existing requirement.
I know, but it's not on the agenda of the Economic Development Committee, and that's what I'm asking that it be put on. Just following the rules.
Okay, all right. Let's vote on whether or not to refer this to the Economic Development Committee for the appointment of the vacant membership. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. And city manager's evaluation. I believe we're fairly behind in completing the city manager's evaluation. I think the mayor
Consistently. At least we're consistent.
Alderman Rainey, that's an old light, right?
Didn't we just
No,
do
no.
it?
I'm sorry.
Mayor, you're reminding us that we need to accomplish this task.
Yes, I believe we have it in Wally's contract that we would do this, which we have clearly not done. So I was hopeful that we could get volunteers. Alderman Holmes and Alderman Nguyen
And they did a fine job.
Did an excellent job
are
last time.
so good at this.
Dolores, I'll do it if you do it.
Okay.
Second.
I'll,
All in
No.
favor?
I'll make a motion in support of that second.
No, Dolores has done it a lot. I will do it as long as Dolores mentors the person who might take her place.
Does anyone, Alderman Grover? Alderman Holmes? Okay. All right, the
Thank you
three
very
of
much.
Thank you, Jane.
And Jane?
Three-
Okay.
that would be
All right.
Holmes, Grover, and Wynn.
would be easy,
Perfect. Thank you very much.
especially when it comes.
All right. I believe the mayor has also suggested a resolution.
Oh, yes, immigration reform.
Would you like to tell us about that resolution, Mayor?
Yes. Not only is immigration reform good for the city of Evanston, but it is for cities throughout the state of Illinois, and the Northwest Municipal Conference is, bless them, getting radical, and has suggested that cities throughout the conference pass this resolution. And as the about-to-be vice chairman of the group, I am asking you all to please consider it.
I move adoption of resolution supporting immigration reform.
Second.
Referral.
This is for referral to the city council. So all those in favor of referring the matter to the city council for approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Do we have any new business anyone would like to raise?
Question, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
With the new city council being seated and committee chairmanships and memberships not being made, is it my understanding then that the existing chairs and committee makeup will continue until such time there's a change?
All right, is there a motion to maintain the existing committee schedules until such time as those schedules and committees are revised? Any opposed? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
The ayes have it. All right, is there a motion to adjourn? All those in favor of adjourning? Any opposed? Thank you all.
Oh, God, we got 15 minutes. I'm going to email.
I met someone you know.